Hello and welcome to Painting with Moog on Moog's Little Figures, and the third part of, hopefully a final part of what was originally intended to be a one-take epic of me painting an Eldar Farseer. Right, where we left off in the previous episode, I'd just finished applying some base colours and a few little highlights to this guy. In the intervening period, whilst I was sorting my phone out, and moving videos around and compiling things and freeing up space, I did a little bit more to it. I added some a few more highlights and some metallics, a bit of shading here and there with I didn't use Airbrush Earthshade. I used this stuff, which I think is generally better. You get a better tone out of it. There's a bit more pigment in it, I think. I generally have a better experience with that than I do with the Airbrush, which does have its place, but I didn't use it on this. So we're at the stage where I'm thinking, well, he's at a decent table ready standard, and I could leave him like that. He's got a slight coat of gloss varnish on him as well, which isn't too obvious from a distance. But I'm thinking, as I was painting my Eldar jet bikes in a sort of a grimdark style, I might do that with him as well. So I've got my trusty airbrush ready, and my streaking grime is somewhere. And this is the scary bit, because this is where it could all go horribly wrong. But we're here to make mistakes and learn from them. So that's what we're going to do. I give my streaking grime a bit of a shake. If you haven't caught the previous episodes, that's what streaking grime looks like. Brilliant stuff. Let me just turn on the airbrush. Oh, this gets further down every day. Oh, and nothing happened. Well, that's interesting. I'll be back in a moment. And it turns out when you unplug your airbrush to plug your phone in, it puts a bit of a dampener on things when you're trying to use the airbrush. Lesson learned. Right. Okay, you can hear the dull thumpity thump of the compressor in the background. So I now have a functioning airbrush. Yep, definitely functioning. In goes the streaking grime, and I'm going to be very sparing with this because I want to try and have it be quite a subtle effect on this one. I've gone quite heavy on some of the infantry I've put together, but I find that's okay with rank and file. You've got to be a bit more careful with focal points. Make sure they look good. Just put my glasses on because I forgot to do that. Cool. Right, let's make sure this works. Come on. Yep. Yep. I think my airbrush needs cleaning, but that'll do for now. So I think we're going to try and be very subtle with this. So just going on the weapon. Don't want to put too much on the robe, because I still want it to read as white. So but the underrobe is going to get some, and the helmet. Maybe just around the bottom edge of the robe. Just add a bit of colour. Oh, that actually looks quite good. I'll leave it at that. Butterfingers. I think the other place I'm going to put loads of it is on the base. Yeah, there we go. It's starting to look much better. Bit of weathering on there. Right, let me find what I need next, which is the thinner. There we are. Standard airbrush thinner. And a cloth. It's a lens cloth for glasses. Thinner on the cloth. Work it in a bit. And just take off some of the streak and grime that got put on there, which leaves it looking slightly grubby, which is what we want, but not overly so. Get that sort of original colour back a little bit, and turn off the airbrush so it's still not doing that. More. Yeah, that darkens it well down. And you get a lot more contrast in there. Yeah, really cool sort of aged bone effect on the helmet. And should be getting a sense of an old mad Farseer who's been around for way too long in places he should not have been, which is part of the storyline I put together for these guys. Right. Yeah, that's just elevated him, I think. Probably going to do a little bit more around the very rim, maybe stipple on some dirt or something. I don't want him looking really muddy, but I want him to look like he's not necessarily felt the inclination to keep his clothes as pristine as some of his Asirani brethren. On account of being quite mad. very cool actually. Quite proud with that. Right, the next step in the proceeding is I'm going to have to do something with that spear. Now I have something in mind which will involve ethematic blue, and I'm probably going to do some object source lighting as well. So turn the camera off for a sec while I sort my airbrush out, get it cleaned up for the next bit. Right, that's everything sorted out. Right, so what we're going to do is get a bit of an object source lighting going on and sort out the blade effect. So that's some pure white going in there. And we are just going to make sure it's coming out white. Oh yes. Yep, that's good. I'm going to get some on the weapon. Getting things as light as possible. What looks like overspray there is going to come into its own when I get the light going on the OSL. The thing is, with this not being a night setting particularly, the light from the spear is actually going to be fairly subtle. But we'll see how we go. The other place I wanted a bit of light was on the hand. Tiny bit of light emanating from the hand onto the robe, and back onto the bracelets and things. Ever so subtle. There we go. Right, let's give this a bit of a wash. Use one of these things to clear out my airbrush. It's ever so useful. Yeah, nice concentrated stream of water which gets all up in the airbrush and clears all the paint out of the reservoir. There we go. And now you see how the top of my wet palette gets covered in paint. Right. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to airbrush a bit of ethematic blue on. If you haven't tried contrast paints through an airbrush, I recommend it. They are brilliant. Just need a tiny bit of that. Okay, that's coming through because you're just picking out, just tinting the very edge. It's possibly even too subtle to see on a camera. There we are. tone on there as well. We'll come in a bit later and actually do some finishing up highlighting on the blade. Bit of edge highlighting with pure white. We're looking for a lighter tone towards the tip and darker towards the aft stroke shaft. Again, we're going a bit of subtle colour here as well, like really subtle. There we go. Yeah, he's starting to look really cool. Yeah, he's coming along, isn't he? Nice, nice. Right, okay. Let's turn the airbrush off because we're going on with brushwork now. Ooh, where are you? There you are. Yeah, brush out of the way. Clean it up in a moment. Tiny, tiny brush. Bit of white out on the palette. There we go. Lovely jubbly. This is where you get the real OSL pop from, your final highlights with white. So the very tip, down the edge, a little bit at the bottom there as well, just to really sell the sharpness of it all. Again up to the tip. And we'll have a few specks on the leading edge of these ferrules. Don't know whether that's a real word for them, but I don't know what else to call them, and it seemed like a word at the time. And the leading edge there. Should give the impression that the blade's giving off some light. And blend that in a bit. And notice I'm using the same paint I put in the airbrush, which is formulated for air brushes, Vallejo stuff, Vallejo, because it's thinner and you can fix mistakes a bit better with it when you're doing this sort of thing. It blends in easier. Okay, that's starting to look really really quite cool, and in contrast to the rest of the miniature as well, which is amazing. Right, I've found when painting grimdark style, what you're really looking for is to be playing with light rather than just covering everything in gunge and such. So you're looking for high contrasts between light and shadow as much as you can. Get that really sort of stark lighting effect. Just picking out the absolute highlights on his hand to give the impression that he is creating some sort of psychic effect, perhaps guiding the Dire Avengers under his command to enable them to better hit the enemy. When you're doing lighting effects, just try to imagine a sphere around the brightest point, and light will dim as it gets further away from that. So at the very heart of the light, it's almost white, which is why I'm going in with the white here. On the back, where the light isn't really cast, I might put a little bit around the back as well, just where the light's coming through the fingers. But the back of the hand would be in shadow if the light's coming from the tip of the from his palm. So you can see there, I'm just sort of sticking a bit of reflected light round the side of his hand, like that. And I think I'm about ready to call him done, actually. I think he looks pretty cool. Decision I've not made yet is what to do with the bases for any of my my army. So I'm going to throw that over to you lot. So if you have an idea for what sort of style of bases these guys should have, obviously this guy's got a pre-molded one, but I'll be able to stick something down on top of that to sort of make it a bit unique. If you've got any ideas for what sort of bases these guys should have, stick them in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you want it. If you don't, then don't. But I hope this has been enjoyable and perhaps a bit useful for you. And I'll see you in the next one.